Welcome back to Wicked Boston Car Reviews. This is your host, Tedward, and the M3. I'm just kidding, I wouldn't do that to you. But today, I did want to talk about the difference in cost between maintaining a pretty much depreciated M3 versus buying a new car and how those expenses compare. Because it's pretty tempting to go and say, all right, this M3 is 80,000 miles. It's going to start costing me some money in maintenance. Or continue to cost me money in maintenance, but it's not costing me really anything in depreciation, versus buying a new car with a warranty, which is going to cost you nothing in maintenance, but it will cost you in depreciation. So I know that a lot of you are going to say, just comment cars below and say, oh, Camaro SS10E, blah, 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 blah. I kind of want to take the low end of the spectrum as far as sports cars and cost go. So I want to talk about, say, Miata, BRZ, and Civic Type R, because the reality is the trade-in price on this M3, the value, is probably only about $18,000, and that's kind of a sad state of affairs, but it's true, and that's the situation. I mean, maybe on the private market you could eke out 20 to 22 if you were lucky, but that's probably not the case. So let's say Civic Type R. Type R is an interesting case because they're not depreciating that quickly. So if you buy a brand new Type R for $37,000, you trade in the M3 for $18,000, you've got to basically make up a $20,000 difference. So boom, right away, you've already spent $20,000. And that's a lot of money. Let's not pretend that $20,000 is not a lot of money. Over the course of 12 to 16 months, luckily, Type Rs do hold value relatively well. So you might lose like $5,000 to $7,000. But then the question is, if you had just kept the M3 up to 90 or 95,000 miles in that year, let's say you're putting a lot of miles on it, would that have cost you that much money? And the answer is probably no. I mean, I've already done a lot of the maintenance on this car that are the big heavy hitter issues. So for example, I've owned this car for about 4 years. I've done the throttle actuators, I've resealed the transmission seals, that's all that rubber stuff around the DCT box. I have done valve cover gaskets, and I have done rod bearing service. All in all, let's just, for ease of numbers, let's say that's $5,000 in maintenance. That's excluding wear and tear items or consumables. We're not going to talk about tires, wheels, or oil changes. But that's not a lot of money to say $5,000 over the course of about 4 years. And then, I'm not going to have to do rod bearings again, knock on wood. And if I do, it's because the engine blew up anyway. So boom, that's 10 grand out the door. The other option, right, because maybe you don't want that front wheel drive platform and you want to go cheaper. Let's say you want to be a little more frugal. A lot of us increase our car value purchases faster than we increase our income. So if you're making $100,000 a year and you've been driving an M3 for 4 years, then 4 years later, maybe you're only making $110,000 a year, but suddenly you feel entitled to a $75,000 Corvette or an F80 M3. That's fine, but let's not forget that you're actually just making the same amount of money and you're blowing an extra 30, 40 grand. So the other option to go cheap is a BRZ, because you can get a BRZ TS, let's say you want a rear-wheel drive lightweight platform, for $32,000. Those are going to depreciate pretty normally, so it's not like a special case like a Type R where it kind of holds its value. The BRZ, for example, is going to be $32,000, so you trade in your M3 for 18, you make up the difference, it's about 10, 12 grand, and I know it's 14, but just for ease of numbers, let's say it's 10 grand. You talked them down. Now you've, boom, out the door, spent 10 grand, and over the course of the next 12 to 16 months, just by driving it, just by depreciation, you're going to have lost another $10,000 on the car. So in that year, you've just spent $10,000. In that same year, you could have continued driving your E92 M3 for another 10, 15,000 miles, and maybe only just done oil changes, maybe a set of brake pads, and it's not going to cost you that much money. That means I could basically blow up my motor and have a new motor installed in my M3 for the same amount of money as the depreciation of a new BRZ. So then, the alternative is to go with a used car, a CPO car, and then you can either make a little money because you're selling your M3 for $18,000. Maybe you're picking up a used BRZ for less than that or equal. Then it's a wash and you're already at the depreciation curve of that BRZ, so you're spending less. But I think the beauty in owning a sort of like higher mileage, I will let you go. You look like you want to walk a little faster. Those boots were not made for walking. the M3 is essentially already depreciated. So if you're gonna have a car that's already at the end of that curve, maybe it's gonna lose another $1,000 to $2,000 over the next, year or two. You might as well just use it, because really all you're doing is paying for oil changes, tires, and the occasional maintenance item, whether it's like a tie rod or something silly like that. Yeah, I think I'm just in a weird position here. Unfortunately, there's no goods. It feels like all the good sports cars are either at the very low end of the spectrum, so $30,000 to $40,000 for a BRZ or a Civic Type R, or you've got to go up to that $75,000 to $100,000 to be at Corvette or even kind of 911-ish area. There are things in the middle that are about 50 to 60 grand where you can, or even 40. You can get a Camaro SS1LE or a Challenger wide body Scat Pack. Those are very cool. But for me, it's a daily driver that I also want to put on the track. And part of my goal with the track is to have a lighter car. And the Mustang, the Camaro, the Challenger, they're not light cars. And for example, the Challenger runs 305s. I don't want to have to be replacing 305s. That's kind of a nightmare. And this is what happens when people go down one ways the wrong way in Boston. Kind of silly. Unbelievable. Yeah, take your time. So, I don't know. I put myself in a dumb position because my daily driver is my track car. Oh, he's a little old man. He's nice. That's cute. Whereas what I should be doing is I should have a caged E36 or a caged Miata that I paid $12,000 for, and then have a $5,000 beater Golf or Honda Civic that I drive to work every day. That's the smarter option. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want 4 cars. That's going to put me in a 4-car position, and I don't want to sell my M5. I don't really want to. Obviously, I'm not selling the Porsche. So, let me know what your thoughts are, because I do see a lot of people spending a lot of money on new-ish cars, whether it's an M2 or F80 M3s, and they're not really just getting the value out of the good car that they had, where they could have just kind of sunk $2,000 or $3,000 in maintenance into it and saved a lot more. I think the allure of a warranty is very strong. So when you look at a brand new car with a warranty, you feel like you're so protected, but you're paying for that protection. You're paying a lot for that protection. It could be $10,000 or $20,000 just to have that feeling. So that's not nothing, and I think it's very important to always look at depreciation and upfront cost before you go and make big decisions. People are nuts here. I swear to God, Boston College must teach a class on accidental suicide, where they're just hey, you should run across the street without looking and without a crosswalk. And then, you grew up in an affluent area, they'll stop. It's fine. It's so bizarre here. So that's my thoughts on depreciation versus new cars. Do you keep your used sports car and just pour money into maintenance? Or do you get the peace of mind with a warranty on a brand new car and deal with the kind of hidden costs of losing money that you don't see? I know a lot of you guys probably switch your cars every 1, 2, 3 years. I'm not that guy. I usually keep them for 4, 5, 6. And those of you who do that, are you finding holy shit, my savings account has never really gone up? Or are you just earning a lot of money? Maybe you're you're not saving money, but you're earning so much more that you can stomach the incurred cost of depreciation. So thanks so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one.